So thank you again for coming. We have a lot to cover today in the 45 minutes that we're together. I'm going to introduce myself and my co-presenter in just a moment. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. During the 45 minutes, we would like this to be an interactive session. We have poll questions we'll invite you to answer. We'd also welcome questions from you through the question panel that is on the side of the screen. If we spot the question at the right time, we'll jump on it straight away. If we miss it, then hopefully we'll have time at the end of the session and we can circle back. Failing that, we'll be able to make contact after the session. So we can see who's asked what, so we should be able to follow up on any questions that we miss or that we don't have time for. So before we look at our agenda and before we begin, a little bit about who we are. Contrary to the way it's laid out on the slide, I'll go first. My name is Matt Plass. I'm the Chief Learning Officer with Interactive Services. We design and we develop learning programs, e-learning, ILT, mobile learning, and our value proposition, we're known for our creative instructional design, which I think is one of the main reasons that Integrys chose us as a partner when they came to put together what will be the main focus case study of today's session, which was an online board game for compliance. Sarah, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Yeah, this is Sarah Hurley. I'm the Director of Compliance with Integrys Energy Group. Integrys is a long-standing gas and electric utilities business located in the upper Midwest United States. The company also has energy marketing and compressed natural gas products and services businesses. And really our value is Integrys has provided shareholders with dividends for 72 consecutive years, so very solid. Also, I'm very happy to be joining Matt for today's webinar.
Thank you, Sarah. So we're going to begin with a question for the group. The question is, which of these best defines gamification of learning? And you may find that actually none of these options particularly suit your own view of what gamification means. We hear the word used a lot. We hear different definitions given for it. So we thought we'd start just by getting a definition that for today's meeting alone we can work to. So I think John's going to put the poll up on the screen, and when he does, you should be able to make that choice. Just give everyone a moment to answer that. Okay, I'm going to close that one out now, and you should be able to see fairly shortly the results up on the screen. Here we are. So, interestingly, I think that tallies with how we feel about this definition. People mean different things by game. The branch of math exploring why individuals make decisions is more commonly known as game theory, but I think it does, there is a little bit of confusion about this terminology. 1 and 3 are the ones we like the most. Learning that leverages game mechanics and a game with educational elements probably come closest to our understanding of what we mean by gamification, and it's those areas that we'll be focusing on today. So we're going to move on and just stop for a moment on a definition that we like of gamification. It comes from Gartner 2012. It's the use of game design and game mechanics to engage a target audience, to change behavior, learn new skills, or engage in innovation. So we read this as it's using the kind of things that you find in games, all sorts of games, to increase the efficacy of your training. And this is really the definition that we'll be working to today. There is a whole brand of game theory which is very separate from what we're talking about today, which is fully immersive, 3D worlds, classroom sessions, which is all wonderful stuff. But today, with the compliance focus, we're going to narrow down on more of the training programs that embody game elements. Okay. So the agenda for today, we've already started talking about what we mean by gamification. The real focus of today's session is around making it happen. So Sarah is going to share a case study, a piece of work that we worked on as a joint team that we put together for her compliance department. And particularly, Sarah's going to focus on what she had to do to make this happen in the business. It wasn't an easy journey to move from never having done anything in terms of gamification before to having a game-based learning piece out there in the business, doing well, getting great feedback. It's quite a journey, and I think that will be a very interesting part of the session today. We're also going to look at how you might identify a candidate for game-based learning, particularly if, like Sarah, you're in a situation where you would like to get one project moving so you can prove to the business that this is a good idea, that it works, that it engages students, and that the results are good. And we'll finish up with 4 or 5 of the things we learned as we went through this joint process together. Okay, so we started off with this definition that gamification is using game design and game mechanics to engage our audience. I think we should stop for a moment and just consider what we mean by that. And this will be a good opportunity if you wanted to use the question panel, maybe to throw out a few ideas of your own about what you think we mean when we talk about game mechanics. So what do you think we're borrowing from the world of gaming to put into educational courses? I'll just give a minute for anyone who fancies answering that in the question panel, and then of course we have some ideas of our own.
And Matt, in some of the research that I did when I was looking into this, and some of the items that you needed to throw out there when you're selling the organization on this, is you're finding that there's a lot of information out there on gamification, and that they've noticed or seen in business that it encourages learning, and it motivates people because there's an engagement that you don't get in your typical training exercises.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting looking, thank you everyone who's contributes to this. So I'm seeing Gayla says badges and rewards. Kelly's talking about using actual games, for example, Jeopardy, which I know is very popular in training. Use of points to give feedback. Simulations, Lucy suggested the use of points. Darren is suggesting that it's a more engaging experience. It avoids boring compliance learning, which is really what we aim for with the Integrys piece. I think using game elements to help you reach your goal in the business is a very good definition, actually, from Janicia. Hope I didn't pronounce that too badly. Competition, Janet is suggesting, absolutely right. Competition with yourself and competition with other learners. And the quest, the problem solving from Gayla again. So some fantastic ideas there. And here's a few that we came up with before. So I think we've mentioned some of these already, but these ideas that you might have to complete a task against the clock, that there could be a story, that you might have to accrue points, that you'll receive recognition, you'll have a sense of your progress, you're going to advance up through levels. You might unlock new information as you go, you'll complete challenges. And I think some of the game playing means around replayability. It's an enjoyable experience and it's one you're happy to go back to. Perhaps an element of chance, perhaps an element of peril, lives that you could lose, energy bars that might deplete if you make too many wrong answers or take too many wrong turns. And of course, the great thing about games is you receive continual, endless feedback. You're always receiving feedback about the experience that you're having. So that's very useful, and thank you everyone for your contributions there. Okay, so I think to round off on what we mean by gamification, we're really saying, in terms of this seminar today, in terms of what we're going to show you as our case study, we're not talking about games that encourage learning. They're wonderful and they're out there, but what we're really focusing on today is more a learning experience that feels like a game. And the reason that difference is significant is particularly around compliance. However much you would like to create game-based learning, you still have to track who's taken it, you have to score who's taken it, and for most organizations you cannot allow an open-ended experience. You need to guarantee that the experience will last 15 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 1 hour, depending on the compliance requirement and depending on what the business will stand. So we really are talking about these learning experiences that borrow game elements, but you still maintain control over the situation. It's worth mentioning as well that if we're looking for the benefits of gamification, Here's one. If we think about where people play games, the answer really is everywhere. We play them at home, we play them at work, we play them on the move, and we play them in social situations as well. So if you're looking for a way to reach your learners wherever they may happen to be, there's no better way than some kind of a game. And I think the cards in the top left here refer actually to almost a byproduct of the online board game we created with Integrys, where they created some physical playing cards that backed up some of the ideas that we presented in the online course. Before we move on, we'll just have a quick look at what other people have said about gamification and its benefits. This is useful ammunition if you're about to embark on your first gamification project within your organization. It's useful to see that other people are doing this. It's useful to see that other people think that it's a great idea. My favorite quote here really is the gamification may be the most important commercial and social development of the next 50 years. And I think that really refers to the fact that games are now so embedded in the way people engage online in all sorts of areas, particularly on their smartphones and on their iPads as well as on their desktops, that it's where communication and learning is already happening, and we want to be part of that.
Right. My favorite in this case is the games create engagement, the cornerstone of any positive learning experience. And what this one really means to me is you don't want learners to phone it in. You want them to have to think when they're putting this together, because then you have the retention that you're looking for on what you're training. So really creating that engagement for the learner.
Absolutely. Okay, that's a nice quote. If you're putting your proposal together, gamification is a Trojan horse. You can read into that what you will. Okay, so we'll make this deck available to anyone who needs it afterwards. And again, this is a very useful slide if you're trying to sum up what gamification means and how it's quantified within a course. So you can break it down into these 4 buckets. If you're talking about a learning experience that feels like a game, you need to think about these 4 areas. First of all, there's the mechanics. What does it actually do? And that could be storytelling, it could be responsive objects, things you play with, things you are rewarded with, access being granted as you move up through the levels, and then the feedback you receive. The second section is the measurement, not just the measurement of score and competency as you would find in a typical training course, but also of reputation, performance, quality, and time. How quickly can you complete these tasks without dropping quality? Behavior, when we talk about games, we're looking for loyalty, mastery, quality, and engagement. And then the reward moves beyond a high score and into recognition, status, access to new areas, access to new toys within the game, and stuff, things you can collect, and possibly even a reward mechanism within the organization that literally rewards success with a voucher or with an opportunity, which I know a lot of organizations are doing. So if you do take advantage of taking this deck after the session, this is a valuable slide.